This is Transqat, a safe space to stand. Transgender issues, queer people, respectful conversations. I'm host Clare McCarthy. Welcome to Transqat. Trans Week is part of the annual calendar events in PTown. And this year, I headed out to the far reaches of Cape Cod to set up Transqat's recording gear for a panel discussion. Thanks to all the participants for their time and their stories. It was a pleasure being with you. Before we get to that, however, Kansas.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done.
No, not that one. Last week, the state legislature in Kansas passed Senate Bill 244 over the veto of Governor Laura Kelly, and it has some pretty heavy ramifications for trans folks in the Sunflower State. For starters, the Department of Revenue immediately mailed out some 300 letters to trans people informing them that their driver's license, their state ID, and their birth certificate are now invalid. No grace period, no exception. More despicable, however, is the provision that any Kansas citizen can sue a trans person if they feel, and here I'm using the largest possible air quotes, aggrieved. So if I use a public bathroom, I can be sued. If I say good morning to a mother and her child in the supermarket, I can be sued. Is there any set of circumstances when a transphobe wouldn't be aggrieved to see me out in public? Remember when President Reagan said the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help"? Well, that was back before the Republicans sold out their integrity to Christian conservatives. Never did I think that I would be looking back on the Reagan years with nostalgia. There are approximately 22,400 trans people in the state, which is less than 1% of the population. So what is the pressing need for anyone to be paying attention to them? It makes no sense at all. Unless, of course, you needed a distraction. For example, if your leader were mentioned 38,000 times in the papers of a convicted pedophile, or if your leader was starting a war in Iran that, according to a Reuters poll, 70% of Americans do not want, or if you're still paying $20 for a 23-ounce can of decaf. To our trans siblings in Kansas, I am so sorry this is happening to you. We see you, we love you, and as the philosopher from New Jersey once sang, hold tight to your anger and don't fall to your fear. I'm Claire, she, her are the pronouns.
I'm Liana, I guess she, her pronouns.
I'm Lynn. I don't have any pronouns, but this is my 5th Trans Week. It's always wonderful to be here.
My name is Kate, and my pronouns are she, her, and I've been coming here since 2016.
My name is Charlie. I'm a teacher I live in Braintree, Massachusetts, and I teach pre-K. I'm still on my gender journey. I'm a little bit young, but I'm really happy to be here to kind of feel a little bit more empowered in myself.
Sitting next to me, anybody looks young. Does the subject of the gender journey come up at your work at all?
Yes, it does. With kids 5 years old and under, they don't actually have a concept of gender except for what we are instilling in them. And most people who work in my field are cis women, unless, sometimes you don't know, but basically you see a cis woman as a teacher. So most people who I work with will be cis women. And the children do see me. I look a little bit more masculine. I carry myself differently. I have what they call a boy's haircut. So they do ask me, even though I've worked with them for about 2 years, they still ask me, and I go by Chelsea at work. That's my birth name. But they say, "Chelsea, are you a boy or a girl?" And so I bring them through the conversation of what makes you ask me that? What do you think makes me a boy? What do you think makes me a girl? Because it's not my job to tell them. that. It's my job to open up that question for them and let them explore that.
Do you find that they're looking, I don't know if you're able to draw this out of them, but is it clothing? Is it the hair? Is it just sort of, you carry yourself in a more masculine way? What do they say when you ask, why are you asking?
Most of them, it goes straight to the hair. I did, when I first started working there, I had a short bob, and I looked more feminine. And so it does go straight to the hair. So usually my response to that is, do you know any women with short hair? And they do. They say, my aunt has short hair, my grandma has short hair. And I say, okay, well, do you think your grandma is a woman? And they do also go into like, well, you don't act the way that my co-teacher does, right? But interestingly enough, I don't see that my way of acting is gendered in any way, because I think that I'm more of just a rough and tumble teacher. I'm on the ground. I'm running around. I've got paint all over my face. I think that's more of my childlike personality than anything to do with my gender. But they do kind of see that as not classically female and what is being instilled in them.
Let's move it around the room. Where are the rest of you in terms of this gender journey we were just talking about?
Gender seems to be an artificial construct enforced by young children. You can't wear pink shoes. You can't shop in the girls' department. And when I was young, it came naturally for me my friends were all female. And I liked to play Barbies, and they kept wanting me to be Ken, and I said, no, I don't want to be Ken. And soon enough, we didn't have the vocabulary back then, because I also was in elementary school in the 60s, and so they called me, a lot of times they called me girl. You're a girl. I am not. And now I feel like, how did they know?
When they said that, I'm assuming that it was not in a helpful, positive way. Hey, you're more feminine than masculine, but it was, you're a girl was said to demean you somehow.
Yes. When I was 4, I specifically remember asking my mother, she was at the kitchen sink in a dress and an apron, Mom, can I be a girl? And she said, no, the bitch. And so,
sorry, Mom. Sorry. If you're listening, Mom, we're really sorry.
She said it in a way that I knew to never ask again, and that I had a secret, and I proceeded to keep the biggest secret of my life tucked away for decades.
Yeah. Now, you started that by saying that kids enforce that, and I think you're absolutely right. I think we all have playground or schoolyard, schoolroom experiences like that, but adults do it too.
Oh yeah,
and that's,
of course.
You got there towards the end that Mom saw those borderlines and said, "Don't cross them."
Yeah. My father told me I needed to get some friends who were boys.
Feel free to,
I'm sorry, sure.
take that.
I
out.
had nothing similar to that. I don't remember as growing up wanting to be a girl. I think it was sort of something that was always, there somewhere, but it's something I never thought of acting on, or so I think that my story is a little different from many people.
What did it feel like then, and how old are we talking when you're getting this notion that there's something?
I didn't act on it until 2018 was the first time I ever really dressed as a woman. I'm a physician now. I'm working 3 days a week as in boy mode. I know that I remember thinking of it. I remember one really specific episode that sort of, when I was a young physician, I took care of many AIDS patients, and that's what I wrote about, and that's what I sort of did. First of all, I was, you think about it in retrospect, well, was I doing that, because of who I really was? But I was just telling somebody the other day, I just remember this specific episode, and there were like all these, young men dying in the hospital, and one of my patients, lovely young guy, I was about the same age, and he had a picture of himself on the dresser, on Femme, and she was just gorgeous. And I said, I guess scared me. It scared me knowing that if this was something that I had acted on, that I would have been dead. Anyway, so it was something that I thought about, but something that was never, I don't remember wanting to be a girl growing up. Just something that was sort of like there. And then once I allowed myself to try it, I realized, wow, this is real.
That photograph that you saw, and I realize we're just doing audio here today, but you are very well put together today, very business casual, if you will. Was that picture of him in drag, or was it similar to that? Was it someone who had passing in the back of their mind?
You know, I didn't ask, but I had the feeling that this was someone who was not just a cross-dresser, was someone who was trans for much of the time. And, you know, just this picture of this lovely, vibrant young woman, and what wound up happening was just...
Yeah. I love that there was something that got passed on in that moment. Hi, Mara. Welcome. So, in terms of the journey, where are you? Where have you been?
I live in a binary world. So I have to be, boy mode and girl mode when the time allows. And my good friend here knows that I do a monthly virtual meetup with the girls from Trans Week. So I've accumulated, quite a few names over the years. So I've been here 5 now. It's been wonderful to do that. So I also go out once a month to Allentown, because I'm from Pennsylvania. And I go to a gay queer bar, and very comfortable in there. And I like to perform. That's my shtick.
Oh.
So you always see me look like a glamour girl. I'm a performer. So I like to perform. I've had the idea of transitioning only one time. And actually, it was a year ago that I started doing HRT from September to the very end of February. And I stopped abruptly because I had a car accident and I broke my sternum. Very painful injury. It took me 14 weeks to heal. So at the time, I was doing the estradiol. I was doing 2 patches. My estrogen levels were way above what the average would be. And in that time, I remember my body just wasn't right, and I was not truly balanced. And for me, anyone who knows me, I preach balance. I said, in order to have one side, you have to have another side to keep it level. And in my case, that's been my formula. So outside of that, that was my only attempt at, transitioned, because I've gone the gamut, right? I've gone like this way, that way. And the problem I have at my age, I'm older, I've been at this since 1994. I always meet new people, but I only can show as much as I can and tell as much as I can. I was here yesterday with Charlie, and we were at a conference where Sybil was talking. So the girls that were next to me automatically started chatting with me because they thought I was a director, or I knew where everything was. Mm-hmm. And I know you turned your head and told her, keep it down. For me, it's like, I want to live in that binary world. But yet I've met a lot of girls who have transitioned from the very beginning to the very end. And then they see me years later and they say, oh, I always look the same. And they say, wow, how are you? And they've gone through the whole process. And I'm so happy for them because that's what they wanted. Yeah. But yet I was already way ahead of them, right? So that's a paradox for me. I have to go through that and understand where I am.
So for you, the binary is comfort. The idea that, okay, there's this over here and there's this at the other end of the seesaw, and as long as we are able to remain in balance.
Balance, like moderation in life. It's similar to that idea, because I don't want to go too much one way and I don't want to go too much the other way. Yeah. So in order for me to exist, I have to keep it balanced and make the people in my life happy. Yeah. Because I'm a grandparent, I have 2 daughters. I'm going to give one away next year in wedding, the older one. So, I got a lot of good things in my life, on both sides.
Knowing you for several years and not seeing you for that, but you do change. You do look more feminine from year to year. And you can't give your kids away, they come back.
They do. They just show up.
Well, she was the oldest one, and she was the last one to leave home, so that was true. And she took her cats with her, which was great. Cool. I breathe a lot clearer now because
of the cats. Mara, welcome. I'm Clare.
Hello, Claire.
We're just talking gender journeys, where you are right now, where you've been.
I live in a binary world, and I'm not out in daily life. At home, it's fine. I live alone. It's a lonely life, though, and I find that the fulfillment is in being with other transgender people. I've been doing this since I was a kid, and it comes in phases where sometimes it's just really strong. It just rages in my life, and I have to pay attention to it. That's the way I can describe it. If I don't pay attention to it, other parts of my life start to unravel a little bit because I get grumpy, our relationships suffer a little bit. Something's not right with me. So I've been retired for about 4 years and divorced about 4 years. The two kind of happened about the same time. And my wife was very supportive. In fact, she went to meetings with me for the support group, and we've been to gender conferences together and things. What happens is that my work took over, and my work forced me to repress these feelings that come up, and then I think that made my relationship suffer. You know, I have to honor these feelings that come up. Like it or not, you have to honor them. Otherwise, it's going to tear your life apart at some point. And now that I'm retired, you know, I'm saying, if not now, when? I've put up with enough ugliness and things over the years, just little things come out, you know, friends around me talk or something. And, you know, and trusting people with my truth is hard sometimes because of some of the hurt I've had to encounter at some times in my life. And it's unfortunate. However, maybe I've been through enough of that. I don't care.
It does sound as if not so much that you don't care, but that in the balance, to go back to Lynn's word, the discomfort, the awkwardness that creates with other people sometimes, it's worth enduring that in order to express yourself this way.
Well, it's like I don't care so much anymore. It's I don't know if the word's real thick skin related to, you know, work stuff's not supposed to happen at work, but if you have a manager who knows about you and is ugly about it certain times during the job, and they tell coworkers about it, and they're kind of drop snidey little comments to me, and this goes on for years, and I can't do anything about it because my manager's my boss. And I want to work at this job. I want to make money, and that's what I did. But I realized how much crap I repressed and suffered, and over that time, and then other times in my life when maybe some friends found out about this part of me, and they don't, because of ignorance, they think I'm a woman. You know, they think I've transitioned. They think I've had surgery and everything. In fact, I was just a cross-dresser. I was doing some cross-dressing at where I lived, and the person I was renting a home from found out about it and then started telling my friends. And this went around for years and years. It's like, this is crazy. You know, why don't you ask me about it? Nobody asks you about these questions. You just hear about the little rumors, stuff. But this is a lot more than that, because right now I'm just feeling this is who I am, this is part of me.
Yeah.
And I'd love to be able to express this as much as I can. And this is my first time here. So,
you having a good week?
Yes. My voice is kind of subtle. It sounds kind of deep. I don't have a real feminine voice, but it can get high a little bit, like that. And at some point, I think I do really love the feminine side.
Yeah.
That tender, soft feeling you get when you dress, and you just it's a feeling that you settle down in yourself when you feel this. And really, that's what it's about. It's just something that some of us need to experience in order to be a whole person.
It raises an issue that I want to send around the group, and that is that, at least my perception when I was growing up, is that there was a line between cross-dresser and, at the time, the term was transsexual, transgender now, and I held that line for myself for a very long time because it gave me certain societal benefits. But is there a line?
I think that there's lines for many people. Mostly the reason why I dress in women's clothes was I couldn't be a woman. I've known since I was very young that my brain is female, and I've held that secret and developed coping strategies so other people never found out. But I had gender dysphoria long before that term was ever coined. And it drove me, I started drinking and drugging at age 13. And by 32, I had almost died from alcohol and drugs. And I've been in recovery now for 34 years.
Congratulations.
And I think that gender identity had something to do with it. And it's just, I had to transit. I hyper-masculinized. I just did everything I could because I thought it would go away. But it just never went away. And I got to the point where I was either going to drive into a bridge or transition. And so here I am. And I recently found out my cousin's daughter attempted suicide because she was transgender, but because no one knew that. And now she's quadriplegic and has no voice. And gender dysphoria kills.
I just wanted to ask you a question. I don't think there's a line. I think it's a continuum. And people can move along the continuum.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's. I don't think it's. It makes it too easy.
No, I completely agree. Hi, welcome. Do you want to join us? Cody, is that you? Hi, Cody. Good to see you again. So we were talking about a continuum versus a line, I guess.
Okay, well, I wanted to come on to what Kate said. I had gotten to a point where I was really down and out, and it was a bleak time, and it had to do with economics, my life in general, and then being trans, right? And when I was growing up, the term transvestite was used a lot.
Yep.
And that is dressed, and you transition to dress. So most people who didn't know, they always call you that. And they assumed that was it. That was your label and stamp you. And they didn't know about people moving on and transitioning and hormones and all these other things that you can do to help yourself become the sex that you, in your mind, feel you are. But in those days, that was it. It was transvestite, you're a label, and you were ridiculed, and they mock you, and that, you shouldn't be trying to be a girl, or vice versa. And that was that mentality back then. It was very little knowledge, and I always honored my parents, and now they're deceased, but I never wanted to shame them. Although I believe in my heart that my mom would have accepted me no matter what, because I was her favorite, and I love my mom. But yeah, that term is very true.
Charlie, can I go to you, and then maybe we could hand the mic over to Cody to introduce himself?
Well, an experience that I had growing up was as soon as I had gender ideas or expectations instilled in me, I felt that I was doing something wrong, in that I wasn't a girl. I was doing girl wrong, and I didn't really know how girls felt, but I felt that I didn't feel like them. So then, as I was getting into high school, I moved into a new place, and I socially transitioned myself, completely changed my name, wore only masculine clothing, and at that point, people could tell sort of that I wasn't a boy, but I was trying to tell them I wasn't a girl, so I was labeled things like, like tomboy, or, I was told like, oh, there's no wrong way to be a girl, no wrong way to be a woman. So I felt that I was being told that I was some sort of cross-dresser, like the way that I was dressing had nothing to do with
so it was clothing
what was
focused.
Inside of my mind or inside of my vision of myself. And that I think pushed me from being able to go through a process where I could feel more comfortable in the fact that when I was a child, I knew that I wasn't a girl.
Yeah. I love that expression that you felt you were doing girl wrong. I certainly had that feeling as well, that I in the other directions like that. I don't really know what you would define as a boy, but I suck at this.
Oh, hi, I'm Cody Suzuki. I actually adore writing spoken word, and it's usually all gender associated. What I feel is really the voice is what brings out visibility. So you can write anything you want, But when you speak, even though you write what you're going to speak, it's like you can lift it right off the page and into 3D. So I really enjoy writing spoken word to be spoken. I did a latest piece I just wrote. It's a blend between a story and a poem. So it basically, it's funny that you asked that question about our youths, because it goes back to grandmother's time, somewhere before the age of 9. And I can't remember the exact day that it all went away, because what it's talking about is all her grandchildren would play. Here's an elderly woman with a bunch of grandchildren. She didn't care, boys and girls. And when we had young children, we just played. There was always toys and puddles and running around and tag and, enjoying these beautiful days. It was like all of a sudden, somewhere around the age of 9, it all just disappears. It's like now we're into society's roles. And I almost felt like I was in a body that I never knew. And then when you think, to myself personally, I don't even feel like a, duality of male and female. I feel like I'm just a blended human being. I mean, when you get right down to your very core, really, we're just all human beings. We're all massive cells or whatever, stardust. I mean, there's so many descriptions out there spiritually.
If you started being aware of that difference, that dichotomy between what people were expecting of you at about 9.
Because
when would you say that you started acting on that and started to resolve that?
Some kind of somewhere around puberty, of course. I guess we're all aware that, we are supposed to be little boys and girls and teenagers, and you're supposed to like this one and not that one, because you could be queer, you could be gay, some sort of labels are all thrown at you. You have to conform, you have to fit in. I would believe it's around there, although I never really gave up what I thought. I just said, okay, I'm supposed to be squeezed into these society shoes that really don't fit. Well, let me give it a try. So I went on with my life, but I never really truly gave up my identity. It was only a little later in life. I had 3 beautiful children. I can't complain. Life has been very good. That I decided to, push more towards the male. But even then, people say, yo, are you a man? You one of the guys? I say, no, I'm a human being. I prefer to dress this way. You know what I'm saying? And, I think life is good. And if we just accept each other and ourselves as the genuine, true human beings that we truly are, life would be a much better place.
Cody's been to a couple of these with me before, and I would love to have you recite your piece at the end. Let's talk about support. Lynn, you had talked about a Zoom monthly meeting. In your day-to-day, how do you get support? Where do you find support for this gender expression that maybe doesn't fit the norms? Mara had a great line about it leading to a lot of loneliness and isolation, and I have certainly experienced that as well. But where do each of you find support?
I go to a gender-inclusive church. And the pastor and her wife are both trans. We have lesbians and gay men, and there's a lot of support that I get from that group. In fact, I'm on the board of directors there. I'm the treasurer, and I get a lot of support there. I also feel like I don't need that much support anymore. I'm good with who I am, and I get support. Of course, I still go to AA meetings on the regular, and that's where all my girlfriends are. And sometimes I feel like they forget that I'm trans. And we talk about anything.
Is AA in general supportive of gender diversity, or is it just not an issue?
They're very supportive, and it's hard to predict before I transitioned who would be supportive and who wouldn't. And the girls in the pharmacy and I decided this customer who was an Air Force test pilot and a manly man and all this might have a problem with it. And when he came in, he was all smiles and welcomed me back. And we talked a bit, and a half an hour later, his daughter texted me and said, "My dad says you have great boobs."
For me, I have experienced the most support right now from my wife, who is absolutely amazing. Over the year that we've known each other, she is just unwaveringly supportive. And then also in recovery groups, I go to a queer recovery group on Fridays in a town next to me, and getting to know people who are like me, but also, interestingly enough, almost nothing like me, has really given me that strength and felt supportive of I can be exactly the person that I am, and seeing the confidence and power that people have being exactly themselves as well.
I was going to say for me, it's, I was talking about a continuum. I think it's changed in terms of support as well. When I first started being Liana, I went to Veronica Vera, who had a school for boys who want to be girls.
Oh, yes. Put out a couple of books, if I
does.
remember.
She's a wonderful person. She's not doing it anymore, but she has a blog and all that stuff. But anyway, she helped me become who I've been becoming. And then she helped me. There's a group in New York City called CDI. It used to be Cross-Dressers International, but they keep that name hidden. And it's sort of like a sorority. We have a apartment space where once a week they have meetings and dinners, no cisgendered males allowed. And they had a space where you can rent a closet, speaking of being in the closet, where I was able to keep my clothes and go back and forth and change. And I'm still a member, but I don't tend to use it for support, just because I think I've changed, and now I get support, and my kids think it's fine. My wife, soon to be ex-wife, did not. But one of the things that I found, which is really rewarding, is having cisgender women friends, and I have a bunch of great friends, and it's enjoyable to be with them without the hovering maleness that I had, and I get support from them, and it's really great.
I think that should be in the next edition of the DSM, hovering maleness.
So as far as support for me, again, I'm the person who tries to balance everything. I do have a very good support system, first and foremost with my wife, who when I first met her, I told her, there's something you need to know about me. And I gave her the ability to choose. Thankfully, she said yes. And she accompanied me for the first 2 years to all the events I had gone to. Keystone Conference, the Raven up in New Hope. And then it had a great following there. And then after 2 years, she said she saw enough, and that she saw that what I was doing was not, perverted, dark, sexually oriented. Because I think that's the first thing that a person gets in their head, a dirty thought like you're being perverted. And when she saw it, and I told her this is a group, an organization, they provide support. And I've been going here for 5 years. I've been at the Keystone for 12. I find ways to incorporate me, and I get the support through the girls here, virtually or in person.
There's a terrific documentary about the Raven.
I was there when they filmed it.
Really?
That was right almost before they sold the place. And it was so popular. We had people coming from Connecticut, everywhere, just like here. Mm-hmm. But that was more like a weekend getaway. You would rent, one of the rooms across the street, and it was like a commune for us. And we had the whole weekend there. We'd do a photo shoot, and there was a dance party, dinner, and it was well organized, But then they bulldozed the building because the community didn't want to have it anymore. But there is a rumor that they're trying to do something similar in that area where the hotels are. So you'd have to go on Meetup, I think. That's where the information is.
Mara, what do you think?
I'm new to the East Coast, for the East Coast gender community. I live in the cornfields of the Midwest. I grew up in the South. I lived in Asheville, North Carolina for 25 years. I was active there, go to Southern Comfort. And I was going to say that this is unique because you're immersed in the community and you're walking, taking taxis, dressed and displaying who you are, as opposed to some of the conferences that are in a hotel. It's almost like you're locked in the hotel, afraid to go out the front door. And I remember I was in Southern Comfort in beautiful hotel, and at my journey, my wife was there with me, and they had a bus leaving to go tour CNN. I said, why not? So I just went on the bus tour to CNN. We're walking in the corridor. One of the has glass in the windows. You can look down, see Wolf Blitzer, at the desk. And I thought, well, now they're probably going to pan up to me and say, oh, look, we've got a cross-dresser. Those are the irrational fears that come up, and it's so crazy. But as a whole, you don't have that experience of the freedom of being out in society, and that's really, I think, the transition that needs to take place with many gender explorers.
That first step out the
Correct.
door.
Can I see what?
Please.
This.
Oh, really? Thank you. I met Cody at the Trans Community of New England's first event in Boston. I did a couple of years of that where did the same thing. People just came in and talked with me. And the first time I did that, I did 12 back-to-back people come in and tell me their stories. And when that was over, I had brought my friend Karen with me, and I just collapsed in her arms and started sobbing because it felt like I had just conducted 12 therapy sessions in a row. People sat and quite unexpectedly told me things that you could tell they had never said out loud to anyone before. Welcome.
My name is Helena. I'm from Maine, and I'm 79, and I'm kind of a late bloomer, though it was a long time coming. I think as a teenager, I had interest in dressing, and I never actually.
You didn't act on it?
No, I never acted on it, and then I got into early adulthood, and all of a sudden, denial set in, and I got married, and we had a wonderful marriage for 49 years. And I'd go into her closets early on, and I'd see a bra or whatever, and I might be tempted, but I didn't. I have a lot of self-control, too much self-control for my own good. There was only one time I was thinking of cross-dressing, which was really late in our marriage in 2009 for Halloween, as a joke. I told myself and I told my wife. And I put the costume on, I put the makeup on, and it totally freaked me out. I mean, in terms of just how feminine I looked. And I took everything off, and my wife arrived, and I said, well, I decided not to do it. And she looked at me. She was a very loving, accepting woman, very liberal woman, but she looked at me, she said, I don't want to come home to my husband dressed as a woman. And I said, of course not. And I meant it to myself. I mean, it was in total denial. And then she had cancer. She was diagnosed with cancer in 2011, and we had about 8 years. She passed away in 2020. And it was at that point that feelings came out. Well, I mean, I was in my 70s. I don't have a partner. My children were grown up. I was retired. I had nothing to lose. I mean, I hear these stories about people really struggling with one or all of those and more. And for me, this is like a freebie, to be perfectly honest. Things can happen, but honestly, I do feel somewhat guilty in the sense that I haven't had to, the way it's evolved, it's just been kind of natural from cross-dressing through, after about 4 years in HRT, and then Trump arrived. There was no struggle. And I mean, the HRT gave me a little bit of a pause, but not much. And then I was struggling with, when do I come out to my kids and my close friends? And I was going to gender therapy before I did the HRT, though I think I went to the gender therapy knowing what the result was going to be, but whatever. At least I could say that I tried to think about pros and cons. And Trump came in, and at that point I said, I'm going to come out. I'm just not going to be hiding in the shadows. And I wrote an email to my kids and close friends. My daughter's fine with it. I mean, she's married to a Marine who's pretty conservative, but they know a lot of gay people. My niece and nephew were gay, so they're very. She was very accepting. Like, what's new? My son said, "Well, I love you, Dad, but I got to get my head around this."
Right.
And we haven't talked about it. I've tried to see if I can get him to say anything, but I'm not going to take the initiative. I did the hard part. I told them this is where I was. The biggest surprise was my brother-in-law, who is very conservative, retired Army colonel, living in Alabama, Catholic deacon, and he wrote me back the nicest email that they had great respect for me, and there was just no adverse reaction. I thought he was going to say, cutting you off the Christmas list or something, but it just really blew me away.
Yeah.
And I've been very lucky to this point. I haven't had adverse reactions. I'm sure that that's going to come at some point, but it's been an incredible experience.
So happy to hear that. It is affirming. I think it's proof that, can't remember who said this, but that exposure is the best counter to prejudice. Hi folks, it's Clare with 5 reasons you should support Transqat with your donation or a sponsorship. Number 5, our company jet can't use the cheap fuel. Number 4, every time you listen but don't donate, a chipmunk tries heroin. Number 3, Transqat will never start a war in the Middle East. Number 2, the owls are not what they seem. And the number 1 reason you should support Transqat. If you don't, my cat Newt will come to your house and yak on your carpet. All right, my friends, I was thinking of asking another individual a question. The good teacher will model the behavior. You had said you are a physician?
I am.
You are.
Yeah.
You're still practicing?
I'm working 3 days a week as Bob, and most of the rest of the time I get to live as Liana.
Do you think there would be a time when you would want to be working as Liana?
I think I might want to. I just don't. You know, I'm old also. I just don't think it would be worth the time and effort to make that adjustment at work for the amount of time I'm going to keep working. You know, there's some advantage to having both sides.
It's funny how once you hit a certain age, that idea that, okay, the finish line, the retirement line is within sight, and that becomes a pivot point for decisions. I've heard that from a number of folks here, that you get, you're like, okay, I'm finally taking some of those burdens, some of those obligations off my shoulders, and now what do I want? So
right now I want to keep working because it gives structure. I mean, I think I'm good, but it also gives me structure to my life that now that I'm living alone, that I sort of otherwise lose. I think it's worth doing.
Yeah. All right. That means you have to ask somebody else a question.
Oh. I'm the questioner?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's your
it
show
feels
now.
like-
I've handed off.
It's like Jeopardy or something. So, Lynn, for 21, what is the best thing for you about being Lynn?
The best thing about being me is the freedom to express myself at any given moment, and being on a stage or having a microphone when I do karaoke, because that's when I feel like I'm totally there and nothing's ever going to take me away from that. And then I feel the moment. Like she was talking about clothes, I feel more the moment and the experience, like I'm here. And I don't take it for granted because it's all magical to me, because some of the funniest things happen or original things happen, and I think it has to do a lot with the vibe,
So now
Now it's
your show. This is what retirement is like. I'm just delegating.
I'm
things.
there too, so I'm kind of learning. This is my first year as retired. I want to direct this question to Charlie, because you are both younger than most of us here, and you're a trans man. So that same question that was posed to me, from your perspective, how is it for you?
What's the best thing about being Charlie?
Yes.
Wow. To me, the best thing about being Charlie is kind of the experience that I was explaining that I have with other people when I see their confidence and their power in themselves. I think the best thing about me is being able to instill that in the children that I work with. As I was saying before, you know, I don't really tell them very specific things about myself. I don't tell them how to see the world. I give them the tools to explore that themselves. And I think that is like my most important mission in life is to be able to empower especially children and the younger people than me around me to go on their own journeys, whether they're going to be cis or trans or gender expansive in some other way. And just to add to that, I feel that being here with all of y'all and experiencing this week has been really powerful for me to bring that back home to my kids.
Have you, I know it's not my job to jump in here, but have you had a kid respond to those, you know, the sort of the questioning and the presentation with, you know, I feel that way too sometimes, or has that not?
I've had some children who are raised by very like open, accepting, progressive parents, so they already kind of have an idea about the things that I'm telling them, such as like, you can be who you want to be. Someone else can't tell you what you're going to be. You decide that for yourself. And there was one child who was very interested in my gender expression. He comes to school wearing a skirt. He comes to school wearing nail polish. He wanted to grow his hair real long, and he would ask me questions. I don't lead them,
right?
And he would ask me about this, and kind of one day he said to me, "So, does all of this mean that I have to be a girl?" And I said, "It means that you get to decide what you want to be. You are name redacted. And that is what matters." And he said to me, "You know what? I just want to be name redacted." And that was like the last time he ever spoke to me about it. So
that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, you're in the spotlight now.
I'm in the spotlight now. Oh my gosh.
It's so much stress, isn't it?
It's a lot of
I don't know how
stress.
people do this for a living.
Oh my goodness. Cody, I want to speak to you about what has been your experience with younger trans masculine people in your life. Do you feel that you've been a role model for people? Do you feel like you're sort of a leader in some people's lives? What role have you given other younger trans masculine people?
So I hope I'm being a role model, because the only role I know that maybe I could be a model in is hosting open mics, speaking spoken word at events, local, spreading the word, because almost 99% of anything that I write is all gender affirming. I just spread gender affirming messages pretty much everywhere I go.
You're a role model, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much.
The reason I asked you that question is because just by looking at you and looking at like Nick, right? Yes. Looking at people who are older than me who display, to me, in my mind, a gender that looks awesome to me and that looks like something I might one day want to attain, or something that feels close to me. You are kind of acting in a role model way without even realizing it, even if you're not trying to, target young trans masks.
That sounds somewhat suspect. Yes, let's not do that.
So sorry.
What's so funny about it is like, even when we host that fashion show, we are so much more than the clothes that we wear. And when you realize this, is a preference? Yes, it's a beautiful dress. I mean, I have all the, it's just what makes us feel comfortable.
Cody, before you hand off the mic, what we're doing is asking another person a question. And at this point, not to single anyone out, but I am pointing to these two people right here.
I'm going to ask Kate, what's your best and happiest moment? Your authentic self.
The most fun I've had is the fashion show coming out in a wedding gown. That was just, oh my gosh, that was worth days and days of smiles. And I repeated it this year, because the first time I did it was 6 years ago. And the pictures, one of the pictures that Dan took has been in the little pamphlet, book that they give out every year ever since. And now it's on the website. It's the best photo of me.
One last question for. I was going to ask you to hand the mic over, but so can you ask one question so everybody gets a chance?
Are you sorry that you waited this long to live your authentic self?
I kind of contemplate that issue. And, I don't think I've totally resolved it, but history is what it is. I grew up in the 50s and the 60s, 70s. Being trans then would have been incredibly difficult. And I don't think it would have been, first of all, it's impossible. It's like, what if I were an alligator or a bear? I mean, it's a question that it wouldn't probably, not that it's not an inappropriate question, but putting that aside, I had a wonderful life, and I have a different life now. I just don't think regret is going to, regret just is beside the point at this point for me.
I love that. What a great button to end on. If you could hand that to Cody.
This is one of my latest pieces. I hope someday to memorize it, but at the moment it's in flat type. This is called Grandmother's Time. It was Grandmother's time, somewhere before the age of 9. I can't remember the exact day when it all went away. In Grandmother's time, all her grandchildren could play. Our days filled with laughter and joy. There wasn't a puddle we could not jump, or a tree we could not climb, or a toy we would not share. Our world, as big as the sky, on a swing to go, oh so high. Those days were a day that breezed into night. Oh, how we wished those days would never end. And Grandmother, she loved us so. We were all the apple of her eye, and she, as sweet as her own apple pie. Oh, in Grandmother's eye, we were all perfectly divine. A gift, gifts of all humankind. Oh, she had such a way. Back in the day, my grandmother had such a way. And one day, I heard my grandmother say, the good Lord just gave some a little bit more. This was truly Grandmother's time. And the world was mine. Somewhere before the age of 9. I can't remember the exact day when it all went away. But as the clock struck 10, Grandmother's day had come to an end. And too, I grew into a body I never knew. All of her grandchildren could no longer play or pretend. We could never go back to where we had been. Life as we knew it would never be the same again. Our bare feet and sneakers now had big shoes to fill, and society had roles to instill. Somehow these shoes, my shoes, never did fit. Squeezed as I might, society's shoes were way too tight. If only I could rewind back to Grandmother's time, a time where life felt so divine. And to this day, to this very day, oh, she had such a way back in the day, and I can still hear what my grandmother would say. If only I could rewind grandmother's time.
If you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you did, check out episode 53, which is the show referenced in today's conversation. It's from the TCNE first event in 2024, and it contains another spoken word piece by Cody Suzuki. If you would like some insight into what's wrong with Kansas, I recommend Thomas Frank's 2004 book, What's Wrong with Kansas? How Conservatives Won the Heart of America. The book is, to quote the description on Amazon, a brilliant analysis, and funny to boot. What's the Matter with Kansas is a vivid portrait of an upside-down world where blue-collar patriots recite the pledge while they strangle their life chances, where small farmers cast their votes for a Wall Street order that will eventually push them off their land, and where a group of frat boys, lawyers, and CEOs has managed to convince the country that it speaks on behalf of the people. Next up on Transqat is a conversation with John Pika Sneeden from the Connecticut Gay and Lesbian Chamber.
Well, the CTGLC covers the whole state. So I did it. I got them all together. I got all of the marketing teams from all of the sports teams together to talk about it. And everybody was on board. It's funny when I talk to my friends about it, especially my friends who are sports oriented, and they're like, you did what? And I said, yeah, I got all of the marketing people from the Sun and the Wolfpack and the Islanders and the Yard Goats and the Hereford Athletics sitting at a table. And they're like, how did you do that? I said, well, they were all my friends because I've been working with them for 10, 11 years. They were shocked. And I was shocked that they were shocked. And then later on, one of our members told me, that's huge. He said, John, sports teams don't talk to each other. They don't work together. So it's been this wonderful journey.
This has been Transqat. I'm Clare McCarthy. Thank you for listening, and let's talk soon.
This is Sadie McCarthy. I'm Claire's niece.
And you've just been listening to Transqat. It is made by one of my favorite people in the world, Clare McCarthy.
Transqat is a production of Transqat Enterprises, LLC.
Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.
Join us on the web at transqat.com.
That's TRANSQAT.com.
QAT.com.
QAT.com.
There you'll find links to Transqat, the blog,
writing projects,
speaking engagements,
and our PayPal donations page.
Please consider supporting our mission with your monkeys.
Monies.
Your monies.
Your monies. Not monkeys.
Please consider supporting our mission with your monies. Any monkeys will be gratefully received as well.
Follow Transqat on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
On TikTok, we are at The Real Transqat.
Want to tell your story on air?
or ask Claire a question.
What is the deal?
She has all the answers.
Or suggest a guest or topic for an upcoming episode.
Use the contact page at the website
or email her directly at crmtranscat@gmail.com.
crmtranscat@gmail.com.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.